Tracy Harwood. So I've done a little bit of digging around and I've discovered.
Ricky Grove. Fog comes in on little cat feet.
Phil Rice. This is the best film that I've seen all year and maybe ever.
Damien Valentine. Use the machinima, Luke.
Hello and welcome to And Now for Something Completely Machinima, the podcast about machinima, virtual production, and related technologies. My name is Phil Rice. I'm here with my co-hosts Tracy Harwood and Damien Valentine. Ricky is away, but he will be back with us, I believe, in our very next episode. So today we are going to cover two films that were picked for this month, one by Damien and one by Tracy. We're going to start with Damien's pick, and before he begins, I just want to give a little preface here, a preface, that the creator of this film has a challenging to pronounce name, and we have decided to. This is not the first time we've used AI on this show. We of course used it famously a few months ago for AI-generated Ricky. That did not go well, but I think we found a more appropriate use for it, and that is to help us pronounce this creator's name. So we're going to make use of AI whenever we need to pronounce his name, which the creator's name is...
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
Okay? So again, the creator's name is...
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
And anytime that we need to say it, we're going to let AI help us with it because it's a challenging to pronounce name. So Damien, with that, why don't you kick us off?
So last month, part of the news was it's a rock song for the video game Deep Rock Galactic. And this was done officially. There wasn't an actual machinima video. But it got me thinking, I know this game is very popular, so I wonder if anyone's made anything with it. So I went onto YouTube and I found all kinds of stuff. There's some narrative videos, and then I found some people they've actually composed songs about the game and they've put them to videos, sort of shanties and things like that. And there was a song I actually liked a lot, but the video that accompanied it was perhaps not the most entertaining video to watch. So I kept looking, and then I found this one, which it's kind of got a nice balance between song and video. So it's Deep Rock Galactic, We All Live Together by
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
And I was quite impressed by the way that he was able to blend the lyrics of the song with the video. Now, I'm not sure if the song was composed by fans, because there's a lot of fan-composed songs, and then there's some that are other songs that are related to mining and things that have been brought in and just put to footage for the game. But I just really like this one, and the game's about dwarves in space, and there's something about the way this song is sung makes you feel like dwarves could have sung it. You know, like the first Hobbit film where you see the dwarves doing that song in Bilbo's house. It has that kind of tone to it, and I thought that's very appropriate for this game. And I just liked it. I thought this is going to be my pick because we never touched Deep Rock Galactic as an actual machinima source before. So I thought I'd share it with you guys. So what did you think?
Well,
what can you tell us about this game, Damien? Deep Rock Galactic. What is the? Did you already mention that and I missed it, or?
No, I didn't really. So the idea is 1 to 4 people. You all play dwarves, and they're different character classes that have different specialities. Like one's good at digging, one's good at getting up into high places, and so on. And you work as a team. You get sent down to do various missions on randomly generated maps. So every time you play it, you have no idea where you're going to go. So even if you're doing the same type of mission, it's a very different layout. And so you go down and you've got to collect a certain number of minerals or items, and it depends on what mission you're doing. It's all very dark, so you have flares to light up the room. They die up very quickly. And you have to mine the stuff. But to make things interesting, the planet below is infested with bugs, like aliens and starship troopers. that kind of insect, and occasionally they'll start attacking you, so you have to sort of hold your ground and fight them off. It's a lot of fun. It's not like, even though they're bugs, it's not a gory game. Like, they explode into slime and stuff like that, but it's not like Starship Troopers with over the top gore or anything like that. But it's kind of got that same atmosphere, and there's a lot of humor in it as well. The dwarves come out with random dialogue based on what you're doing. Um, and I've played it quite a bit with some friends, and we always have a great time doing it. Uh, yes, and it is quite a popular game. There's a big community around it, and obviously some creative people, if they've gone and started writing songs about it. And I don't know how someone came up with the idea of space dwarfs, but it kind of works. And as you play it, you collect minerals, and you can you spend them on upgrading your cosmetics for your character, and different beards and different armor. You can unlock different weapons and so on. So yeah, it's just a fun space shooting, first person shooting game.
It's not the first of this genre that I've heard of. This idea, multiplayer squad game, and you're sent somewhere on a mission when there's a random element to it. There's another game that I don't know what the title of it is, but I've seen my son play it with his friends, and it's more of a horror themed game. Like it's very much about jump scares.
Hmm.
This one looks a little bit more of a lighter tone.
Yeah.
More emphasis on just fun, and the colors in this video are just gorgeous. It's a, you know, for a mining game, you don't really think of you know, colorful environments, but this is just, it's beautifully rendered. I assume that this is all just footage from the game without enhancement, and it's gorgeous. The particle effects and fire effects and explosion effects and stuff are very crisp, and I mean, it's certainly a good introduction to the what to expect from how the game world's going to look for someone who's like me, who had never even heard of it. So I really admire that about it. It's nicely edited. It's not trying to do more than it's trying to do, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's just a nicely edited set of scenes. And the song is great. Yeah, it does have that. That's exactly what it made me think of, is not so much from the movie, but from reading The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and the dwarves as they're going through these caverns, and they tend to break into song. And of course, in Tolkien's book, it's just, the song is just written out. You see the whole thing. Sometimes the song goes on for pages, and it's like, what in the world's he doing here? But that was what he did, you know. So yeah, it evoked that spirit for me, and yeah, it was enjoyable. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Tracy?
Well, me too. I liked it a lot. I think it's a great edit of the game. Again, like Phil said, I know nothing about this game. We've never seen anything created with it before. Did, of course, mean I had to do a little digging.
Very appropriate for this game.
Indeed. Boom, boom. Well, okay, so it's an edit to the Futuna theme song, Warframe, which was written and composed by Keith Power, who also wrote music for films like Avengers and Thor, as well as TV series like Hawaii Five-0. So it's not
Oh, wow.
creator community at all. It's professionally
Okay.
created. It's a real foot stomper, actually, with you know, really great atmospheric and cinematic components, which kind of mix orchestral and choral music. And as you both said, it really evoked for me this kind of like workaday feeling, getting on with the job, hard labor, and so on. But it makes a lot more sense when you look at the Warframe rendition of it, in terms of what the words mean, because there's a backstory to that, which is clearly not so much relevant to Deep Rock Galactic. However, having said that, I think it's really quite interesting how the approach that's been taken in this film is very similar to the Warframe video, because there's lots of hammering in that as well. It's all about manual labor. It's all about a generation being indebted and all of that sort of stuff. And this game is all about dwarves and aliens and, you know, how hard these little guys kind of work. So there's a kind of a similarity, even though there's nothing really in common between Warframe and Deep Rock Galactic. There's a couple of things that I picked on which I thought were intriguing. For example, there's a few, you know, you've got a few sort of introductory scenes into the film, which were mainly kind of zooming and panning, mainly panning to the right, like we would normally expect. But then about the third or fourth scene in, it pans completely the other way. So it doesn't seem to be going forwards. It's kind of like going backwards. And actually, when I was looking at it, I wasn't expecting that. I was thinking, oh, it's a story, it's going forwards kind of thing. So it just didn't follow a pattern that I expected in the way that the camera moved. Now, ordinarily, I probably wouldn't have paid so much attention to that, except for the fact in this, it was a really clever way of grabbing my attention right at the beginning of that movie, because I clearly had no idea what was going on, other than, well, I just got no idea what was going on. I didn't realize these were dwarves until a little bit later on. They looked like people in spacesuits, just sort of wandering around a strange kind of bar-like environment in some respects. So yeah, that was intriguing. I thought the way that my attention was grabbed by that one sweeping shot, which just went in the reverse direction to what I was expecting. I guess I was especially attracted to the vibrant colors, like Phil said. I mean, I had no idea that this game exists, but it's beautiful. There's this lovely emerald green and these gold colors that you see in all the scenes. It's very eye-catching, very, very interesting, I think, to look at. Made me wonder why we don't see more in it. Maybe we should look out for more machinima in it. Or maybe it doesn't really lend itself to machinima creating. I don't know. I just kind of wanted to see more from this world. So yeah. The other thing that kind of caught my attention was just how well edited it was to the rhythm of the music. So every time there was a beat, you know, the scene changed. I thought the timing was consistently well done throughout the whole thing. And that's something that's actually also evident in the Warframe video that you will see as well. So yeah, made me want to have a look at what else this guy had been doing, because I thought if he's creating stuff of this evidence quality, I suppose, maybe he's got some other stuff. Gotta say, Damien, this is probably the only thing of the hundreds of videos that he's got on his channel that I would actually sit and watch.
I haven't looked to see who else he's done.
Not much, I have to say.
Okay.
Well, you know, maybe he'll say that he's done quite a lot, but actually not much in terms of what we might review on this show.
Okay.
But really interesting pick.
Yeah, I hope we see more from Deep Rock Galactic. There were other music videos, and there was a narrative video that I watched it, and it was very well done, but I felt it's a little bit too long. It dragged things out a little bit too long. And I thought, let's go with one of these music videos. And yeah, okay, so this song isn't specifically written for this game in the end, but there are songs out there that are, because the lyrics do reference things that are in the game. And I thought, well, that's nice that they've done that. So actually, when I discovered this video and the others, when I've been playing it with my friends, we now listen to those songs as we're playing to get into the spirit of it.
Well, I can see that would achieve that. I mean, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's clearly what they're intended for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure to keep an eye out for more videos in that game, and also we'll keep an eye out for more videos from
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
You know, just in case that
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski
decides to make more videos in Deep Rock Galactic. So yeah, actually,
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
if you're listening, we would love to hear from you more about the inspiration of this video. So for you viewers, if you want to check out the work of
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
just go to youtube.com/
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
and yeah, you can see more videos made by the director, who's, if you didn't get the name, it's
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
great. So I think we can now move on to Tracy's pick for this month. Tracy, why don't you introduce it for us?
Yeah, sorry. I gotta compose myself.
We haven't heard you say
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
yet this episode, Tracy.
No, you can't even see it. No,
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
that's
sounded just like when I say it, when I say,
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
all right.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you're gonna have a lot of editing to do on this one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've lost it.
Phil, you know who you were
It
talking about
wasn't
having
too forced, was it? Was it too forced? Me saying it 12 times in one paragraph? That wasn't unnatural, was it? A little
Actually,
bit.
Phil, you know, last month you were saying maybe we need a new intro at some point. Well, here's your footage for it.
That's right. And now for something completely
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
the
I
podcast about
can't do it. I can't do
Szczebrzeszyniarz
it.
Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
Okay.
machinima and other related technologies. I'm your host.
Szczebrzeszyniarz Brzeczyszczyczmoszyski.
Tracy, you've got completely red.
I've got tears rolling down my face.
Oh, this will be fun to edit.
Oh, dear, I'm so sorry. I completely lost it. My pick's a little more serious than that one, I have to say. This is called Helsreach Part 2, and it's a Warhammer 40k story by a guy called Richard Boylan. And it's a little bit older than some of the ones that we have reviewed of late. This one's a 2017, so it's 7 years old already. Now, at the start of this creator is actually an avid Warhammer fan. He's been playing this game for years, long before he made this video, 15 years or so before he made this video. And he's used the voiceover from the audiobook Helsreach, which, you know, it's almost completely unrelated to well, it's not really unrelated. It's created separately, if you like, to what he's done with the film and Warhammer itself. He's so he's a filmmaker by training, and he's also a video game developer. He's based in Montreal in Canada, but actually at the time he made this as a fan film, it was based on his experience as an army vet, having served in Afghanistan. That's how he came to be a fan of Warhammer in the first place. Now, as a filmmaker, he's produced TV series, and as a game dev, he's worked at EA as a cinematic designer, and he was self-employed for a couple of years, and still is to a point. But super interestingly, he's now working for Games Workshop as an in-house director, and no doubt that is based on the massive success of this incredible Warhammer series that he created. Currently, it looks as though he's working on a series called Angels of Death, clips of which you can see not so much on his channel, but elsewhere on YouTube. Now, we've only reviewed episode 2 of this. There are in fact 10 episodes. If you clip it all together, it's it's episodic, but if you clip it all together, it's over 2 hours long. I'm not sure I could watch 2 hours of this. The footage was generated in Warhammer 40k Space Marine, and what he's done is he's used game assets and animations as the foundations for the visuals, but then he's enhanced them with these kind of additional effects and editing in post-production to sort of achieve this cinematic quality that you see in the video. He's used Blender and Adobe effects to achieve that. There's also clearly some quite intricate modeling and texturing and also probably rendering processes employed. And I think he's used things like custom shaders and lighting techniques to kind of create this sort of dramatic and immersive effect that you kind of see in this animation. But mostly, I think quite a lot of what he's done is in post-processing and compositing. Has kind of also played quite a crucial role in what you actually see. What caught my attention with this when I was looking for a film this month was actually the aesthetic style. It's not one we see very often with machinima. With this, it's got a kind of a hand-drawn, coloured, almost graphic novel kind of approach. It's quite minimalist, and I say it's black and white, but it isn't black and white. It's kind of grayscale and white backgrounds. So it's got this kind of minimalist yet quite detailed, almost sort of scratchy look to it. In places, it's really hard to make out what the features are and what the focal elements are that are seemingly being referred to in the voiceover at times. I think in many ways it leaves a lot to the imagination, which is great if you know a lot about Warhammer, and I totally confess I do not. So this is going to be something that probably works best for the Warhammer community and those that are kind of interested in quite experimental ways for telling stories. The bit that makes it hard to watch is the continual juddering. I'm sure, Phil, you're going to tell us what the name of that technique is, but it's a continual, almost like, flipping through a paper book at speed, where you've got slightly different out of sync animation or drawing on each page. It's kind of continually moving. And I watched, is this one about 9 minutes long? 9 minutes is about as much as I could take of this continual juddering of the image. Having said that, it's to me, that kind of juxtaposition between the deliberately grainy quality of the video and the kind of aesthetic richness of the voiceover, which is this audio reading of Helsreach. I thought that was quite an interesting strategy. Now, Helsreach was written by a guy called Aaron Dembski Bowden, and the version that you're hearing in this video was narrated by a guy called Jonathan Keeble. And what impresses me is how somehow there's kind of this intricate relationship created between the film, the book, and the narration. I know when I mentioned it to Ricky earlier, he thought it just didn't work. The more I thought about it, because initially I thought, no, I don't think it works either. But actually, I think it does work, weirdly. I think there's something, maybe the voiceover is dominant, I don't know, but there's something that kind of knits all these three things together in a really interesting and kind of compelling way. I wouldn't say complimentary necessarily, but it's certainly compelling in the way that it's put together. It's a really gritty and dark story. which is why the graphic style choice was made by the creator here. Keeble's voice is very typically English in its style. There's this kind of rich timbre to it. It's almost Richard Burton-ish in style. It's quite a perfect English accent, really. It gives over the impression of being this kind of aesthetic of a leading soldier of war, maybe a king or a lord of some sort, perhaps this kind of, do you remember how Burton used to narrate some of those kind of Second World War films? It's got that kind of feel to it. Boylan has added to the reading with background music and ambient battle sounds, things like clashing weapons, roar of engines, screams, and all of that kind of thing. And I think without that sort of secondary sound level, which isn't, you can't hear that on the audiobook, it probably would have been a bit too sterile. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting approach to to a machinima. I don't think I've seen anything quite like this before, actually. No idea what you guys think. What do you make of it?
Well, I think we've discussed before, and none of us know anything about Warhammer.
Yeah, well, yes.
So I know there are lots of Warhammer books, and obviously Helsreach is one of them. I think the audio book version, I thought the narration was excellent, and the way he did different voices also excellent. Just some audiobooks, you just get a read. It's like someone's just reading the book pretty dry, and then other narrators, they'll do different voices for different characters, and that makes it a lot more fun to listen to. And obviously, this is one of the latter. I didn't like the flickering of the animation that much.
Mhm.
I like the idea of doing it, making it look hand drawn, but I think whatever a filter or effect was done for this was too much. So I had a look to see some of the later videos, and the style's changed. It's still got that hand drawn look, but it's different and it looks much more watchable. I didn't watch it because I didn't watch any of the chapters in between. And because I don't know anything about Warhammer, I thought I'm going to be completely lost if I jump to chapter 9. um, but it was nice to see that he had realized maybe that was a little bit too much, and he toned it down. So that was a good thing to see, because I did find that it was really hard. I found myself watching it on my second monitor out of the corner of my eye, so I could still get an idea of the character movement, but it wasn't flickering in my face for the whole 9 minutes. And I was just listening to the story rather than watching it, which is probably not the best way to watch a video. But yeah, that's about all I can say about the actual rendering in the video. Because I don't know anything about Warhammer, I don't know how accurate it is. Well, I guess it must be pretty accurate to the book because it's got the narration of the audiobook. The other thing I can say is, with Heir to the Empire, I've had a lot of people say to me, why don't you just use the voices from the audiobook? And it's not really an approach I've wanted to do. The narrator for the audiobook is very good, but I like having actual individual voices for the characters. Now, the way this story is told, it's narrated as well as having the character voices, and I think that works. It's still not an approach I would like to do, but it's interesting to see someone else do it. And apart from that flickering on the filter, I think you did a pretty good job of bringing this story to life. And I was because I actually started watching. Well, how is this cinema? And then of course, look in the description. He talks about how he made it, which was very helpful.
Yeah.
Because my first thought was going to be, Tracy, why have you chosen a film that's not machinima? But then, yeah, it's more the filter over it that disguises the fact, and maybe that's the point, to make it look hand drawn rather than something that's made with the game.
Yeah, I got the impression it was more about what can be the aesthetic associated with dark and gritty. And I kind of I think this creator had had that style in his mind long before he came to the video game. So I think it was I think that's how it was basically put together. It's kind of interesting actually as well, because when the author saw the author of Helsreach saw these videos, he basically said what was interesting about the videos was that they perfectly represented what he had in his mind when he was writing the book. Which is
That's
a kind of it's an interest. That's what I mean about there's quite an interesting relationship between these three things, because they weren't done with each other in mind, but they have connected subsequently. Very interesting.
Now you just mentioned that, you could imagine taking a still from one of these videos and putting it in the book as an illustration of
Absolutely.
what was
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. 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 Phil, what did you think?
Yeah, so it's so eerie to me that you would invoke the name of Richard Burton, because we did not discuss that, and that is exactly who this narrator reminded me of. Like, precisely. I see his face when I'm hearing this. Really bizarre. This is an audiobook that would be very enjoyable to listen to for sure. It's just wonderfully performed. Just wonderful. And yeah, I too, as someone who does listen to audiobooks from time to time, I do enjoy the ones where it's more of a performance than just a read. That was actually I recently finally got on Spotify earlier this summer, off of, and audiobooks are included, and yeah, most of them are. You open up, it's George Orwell 1984. I wouldn't mind hearing that again. I've read it I don't know how many times, and yeah, it's just like I paid my neighbor to just come sit down and just read. He's never done this before, but I'll read it for you if you pay me. It's like that quality. This is the other end of the spectrum from that, for sure. Just wonderful performance. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned, Damien, that the visual style changes in the later videos, because while you guys were talking, I went ahead and jumped forward to one just to get an idea of it. And oh my goodness, what an improvement. Because yeah, on this part 2 that we focused on, he must have been kind of still figuring it out, right, of how he wanted to do it, or maybe he responded to some feedback. But yeah, the effect, I don't know if there's an official name for it either, but I would call it juddering as well. And that attempt at a pencil drawn filter, yeah, it's too much of it, first of all, and secondly, there's a repetitiveness to the pattern that our eyes can pick up on, even if you can't dissect it and say exactly where the repeat begins and ends, but you can sense it. And that really is very, very distracting. Like, I totally, if it was based on the part 2 that we looked at, no way I would watch 2 hours of this. I'd listen to it, probably, it's really good. But I wouldn't watch it. But you jump forward to number 7. All right, now we're cooking. I think even later, in the later episodes, even then it's a little too much. And here's why. Okay, it's not just that I don't like jitter effects or don't like manufactured hand-drawn effects. Maybe I don't, but that's not why. The reason is that this filmmaker's use of high contrast is just brilliant. Light and shadow, the fact that it is almost pure black and white, but you're right, there's a little bit of grayscale to it. I would wonder what this footage looked like before he applied that filter.
Yes, I thought that.
Because I think it almost could work as pure black and pure white. I mean, it's really an achievement, whatever process he did use to get the footage to have that such distinct separation between the light areas and the dark, and the framing of the shot and shadows, and you know, always every single shot conscious of, if this character's in front of a light background, I've got a dark, you know, it's a darker form of the character. And if he's in front of a dark background, the character's lighter, and just it pops. And you can get that sense of pop in the later episodes much better than in this one, where it kind of mushed into a dark gray, and then the juddering just makes it harder to appreciate. But there is some absolutely masterful understanding of composition and light and shadow, just brilliant. Yeah, I'm very curious about the process that was used. Like, it would be neat to see a making of where he shows us, okay, here's the game footage, and then here's after I ran it through Blender, and then here's after I ran it through Adobe, and breaking that down. I don't know if if a magician doesn't give away their secrets, I guess, but as a creator, I'm like really curious about that. But even this isn't even about those techniques as much as it is about the original shots had to have a masterful understanding of that to know how to capture the footage such that he could do that with effects later. Like that contrast is not done with effects, not solely. Maybe the effect helps separate the extremes a little bit. You turn up contrast, that can do that, but it was shot with an understanding of lighting that made that possible. And yeah, even through all the muddled juddering, the details on the costumes and the faces and all of that, it's really remarkable. So yeah, I'm left with a sense of, in a perfect world, I could watch this without any of the juddering and hand-drawn effects at all. Like, that's what I'd really want to see, because I think that the richness of detail would really come through well, because I think it's there, I think it's there in the original footage, and then we could maybe appreciate a little even more the amount of design that went into this. Now, how much of that was his design and how much of it is that level of detail is in the game assets, I don't know, and I don't really care either. It's there, and it's shot really well. So, yeah, I don't know. I found myself, maybe because the techniques were so in our face, that I really didn't even give any thought to the fact that I don't know anything about Warhammer other than the one or two films we've covered over the years. And I think at one point, Tracy, you did a deep dive, and we kind of got a general sense of the overall landscape of that world. And I don't remember any of it important, any of the details. But I never really got to the point of engaging with the story at all. I don't know if that's necessarily a drawback of the film or not, but because technique was so loud, that's really all I could think about when watching it. But I found a lot to admire. And I'm really encouraged, having just now 3 minutes ago or so jumped ahead to see a later one. I wouldn't have been compelled to do so just from watching this first one that we saw.
No,
I
I
wouldn't
agree.
have. I would have just said, nah, it's not for me. And actually my original comments today were going to be, this would have been better as a short. Just do a short. I could tolerate this for a few minutes. Probably not as long as this episode, like you, Tracy, but give me a 4 or 5 minutes of this. All right. I can do it if all the other stuff is up to snuff like it is. Okay. But 2 hours? No way. No way. I physically couldn't endure it. It gives you a headache, The later episodes, not that way at all. So yeah, I don't know if as far as recommendations go, if you're wanting to watch this, you don't want to skip the first few episodes if you're interested in the story, or you'll miss it. So just be prepared for a little bit of an endurance test, but it gets better for sure. Looks like it takes him about 4 or 5 episodes. 5 is still pretty I'm just jumping here to see. 6 is a little better. Okay, 6 is where it really lands. So, yeah, you got to get halfway through it before. You got to get halfway through this movie before it's watchable.
Halfway
It's
through
not
it so far.
unwatchable, okay? It's not unwatchable. But it's hard to watch.
Best way to watch it is kind of like I did, just watch it out of the corner of your eye and listen to it until it gets to the point
yeah,
where...
or maybe like squint or something. I don't know.
But
Anyway,
I can relate to it because the rest of the Empire, when I look back at those first few chapters,
you changed production techniques along the way, right?
yeah, and
the
the
rendering
software,
and all
even the
that.
software itself, had a massive upgrade on the characters, which
Right.
meant I had to, recreate all the character models. But I can look back and think, well, that's not looking as good as what I can do now, and it's the same with this film. And I get it. You learn more, software changes, you get feedback on what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and you learn from all of it. So I am glad to see that he's doing the same thing and he's learning to improve his craft. So,
and that's one of the advantages of Tracy. You referenced this, I think, in our look back episode, of the fact this phenomenon of creation going on in a community.
Yes.
In Reddit or in Discord or in these types of things where it's not just some guy laboring away in a room alone and then throwing out there. There's a feedback loop that he's tapped into, and then he's listening to it, I think, pretty clearly, which he doesn't have to, but I think that's something that pays for itself, because you're getting valuable feedback from your audience and can adapt your production. And then they see that and they're encouraged, because they kind of makes, even though all I've done is give feedback perhaps, but they feel part of that feedback, the feedback loop. And so they feel like they're kind of part of the creative process too. And they are, feedback is part of that. So yeah, that's a great point. It's definitely an ambitious undertaking, because you're right, Tracy. What are the examples of this that we could find that are out there? It's very rarely done in any medium, but particularly with machinima involved. I don't think I've ever seen it done this way. It's a type of technique that I would expect out of someone maybe like Tom Jantal. I've never seen him do this thing, but it's like that type of artistic daring, I think. And Tom has that understanding of light and shadow that would be required to pull this off. If this was just a muddled gray mess or typical game footage without that attention to lighting, I don't think it would translate to that effect well at all. It would just be a gray muddled mess. So there's real craft underneath this. And okay, I don't like the icing, but I sure love the cake. I'll say that. Yeah. So great pick.
Yeah. What great picks we've had all month.
All very different from each other as well.
Yes, very interesting.
And 3 out of the 4 of them we didn't hate. Car crash. So anyway, yeah, good stuff. This is a pleasure as always. Listeners, viewers, we'd love to hear from you. So drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you know anything more about Helsreach or 40K and want to educate us, or just have some comments about this film, maybe you know a little bit more about how they might have pulled this technique off. Let us know in the comments or drop us an email at talk@completelymachinima.com. My name is Phil, and on behalf of my co-hosts, Damien and Tracy, we wish you a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.